Hey everyone, so this is our third week of our Bet Ob series where we've been talking about the unfolding story of God's love throughout the whole Bible, shown through the Jewish culture, and Jesus was the climax of it, right? It all led up to Jesus and what he did. And through that culture we learned that the head of the household was someone who was willing to protect the people that were under their care, to provide for them, to rescue them if there was any if they got taken away or enslaved by anyone, and to pay off debts of someone, right? And Jesus does that for us. And not only that, God says that he invites us to be his children. We're his adopted children. And we're going to read in this verse today that God puts us in the same standing as he does with his very own son, Jesus, right? And we're reading something from the book of 1 John chapter 4, verses 17 through 18. And John was one of Jesus' closest disciples. You read in the New Testament that Jesus would take away 3 disciples to go meet with him and do things and see things that the other disciples didn't get to see. And John was one of those. And John was actually there when Jesus was dying on the cross. Most of the rest of the disciples ran away because they were scared that they would end up in the same place that Jesus was. But John stuck there. So when John writes stuff, it's amazing because of his close relationship with Jesus. So he writes this: God is love. When we take up permanent residence in a life of love, we live in God and God lives in us. This way, love has the run of the house, becomes at home and mature in us, so that we're free of worry on Judgment Day. Our standing in the world is identical with Christ's, right? Not only are we adopted into God's family, but we are given the same standing that God's very own son Jesus has. Perfect and sinless and purely loved, right? A lot of times we fear because we're like, well, I haven't been perfect and I haven't made every right decision, or I've fallen short sometimes. And God's going to look at me a little different. He'd be like, yeah, but that guy, he's a little messed up, right? That's not what God does. God looks at us in the same way he saw his perfect sinless son Jesus, because Jesus swapped places with us, right? He took our punishment, our sin, put it on him, and we get clothed in Jesus' righteousness. It says, again, our standing in the world is identical with Christ's. It says, there is no room in love for fear. Well-formed love banishes fear. If we have this understanding that we are part of God's family and he loves us so much that he built on a room for us in his family compound, and he wants us to live there with him, not just passing by and saying hi every once in a while, but be part of everyday life with him. That's how much he loves us and cares for us and wants to be around us and enjoys us. Remember we talked about in Zephaniah where the Lord sings over people that he loves, right? He wants us to be there. And there's no room for fear there. It's knowing that, yeah, God might not like decisions we make, and he wants to help us grow from them, but it's not because he's mad at us and wants to smite us or destroy us, right? Perfect love banishes fear. We know that God loves us, and he's going to help us grow out of it. Since fear is crippling, it says, a fearful life, fear of death, fear of judgment, is one not yet fully formed in love. Guys, I've met people who are in their 90s on their deathbed who have asked me, am I going to heaven? And they just didn't know. And I was like, God, that would be so sad to live a whole life trying to follow Jesus and not knowing that he loves you and not knowing that you are truly part of God's family. I don't want you to go through that, right? Hear this verse today. Understand that you are completely and fully loved, that Jesus' death on the cross and his resurrection took away the punishment of sin and death for you. Right? We'll all die physical deaths, but at the same time, we will be raised to life and live in God's family forever. All we got to do is trust in him and be part of that relationship. Talk to him every day about the good stuff going on, the bad stuff going on. He cares about it, right? That's the amazing promise of what Jesus has done for us. So I want you guys to get that we are fully loved and we need not fear what will happen when we die. We don't need to fear that God will judge us harshly because of what Jesus has done. Love you guys. Have an awesome week.